that talking about being a big old hoe would probably ruin any chances of dating anyone, but I didn't care. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because, first of all, look at my dog. Oh. I got a comment today from someone who follows my stuff, and they were trying to be helpful, trying to tell me, that I may not want to talk about hot men and men eating, Kit Kat, and all the perverse things that I say on here. And I actually want to use this as a teachable moment because I think it's actually really important. Not only just to talk about this in general, but to explain that this was a huge risk for me, knowing that I might possibly never meet somebody who could handle me. And by me, I mean someone who tells stories about my life unapologetically, and that I can talk about my schmeg's life and not be worried about what the man I'm dating or married to might think about it. Because if they're married to me, I should hope that they know who they're dealing with, right? I didn't want to be with someone who did not know who I was. I refuse to keep who I am from the man I'm with. I saw too many women doing it when I was growing up. I still see women doing it now. They're a different person in front of their partner than they are in front of their friends, their best friends. And I hate that, and I refuse to do that. And yet I understand, a lot of people find it, think that maybe my husband doesn't know about this stuff that I'm talking about, or they get concerned when they watch me tell stories about forking dudes and having threesomes and, blah, and they get concerned for our marriage because they assume he can't handle it. They assume that they think it's being disrespectful. And I get why, but I'm going to tell you why it's not. Before I even met Anthony, I had already published this, which is about hooking up with dudes, being selfish, it's not selfish, in bed, centering my O. And this one in particular, I'm talking about a threesome I had with two dudes. This one was already out. If you Google Melanie Hamlet, this would come up about, hooking up with dudes younger than me. Awesome that was. How I was slut shamed all over the British media as a cougar. And I even made it into the online dictionary. I've talked about this before. About men not being able to stay over because I want to sleep and, just fork me and leave, please. Bye. There's a story about me wanting to fork Jesus at the Jesus themed amusement park. There's so many ridiculous stories about me. Easily Googleable, easy to find. Yeah, even this one where I talk about how I always bring a vibrator with me to hookups. Or, you know what I mean? One about me sleeping with dudes, a clown. And this one, hooking up with the same guy that my friend did, and then her and I becoming best friends. But you get the point, right? I've got podcasts, I've got written articles, I've been doing this for a long time. And I remember when I first started writing, I was like, okay, am I sealing my fate of being alone forever? Because I'm not sure I believe that any man could handle someone who talks about this, somebody who doesn't even know her body count, doesn't care, is actually proud. I love that I've had so many lovers. I love that for me. I have anything but ashamed of that, right? And then I also talk about this stuff for a living. What man wants that, right? I knew going into it that that's what I was facing. Was a very high likelihood that I would never date anybody seriously, much less get married. And I'd already accepted I was probably never going to get married anyway. And I was like, I will not let a theoretical man that doesn't even exist dictate my career and my art and the thing that makes me so happy. And I remember as I started doing more storytelling, sometimes there was a guy, Breadcrumb Guy. Do y'all remember Breadcrumb Guy? I've talked about him. I wrote about him. Dude, I wrote about him for Shondaland, okay? The guy with the Pokemon pillow, twin bed, blah. He came to one of my shows here in France. And I was, it really messed with me because I was like, oh man, I'm telling my clown forking story. I don't know if I want him to hear that, because it's so much easier to tell stories in front of a bunch of strangers than the people you know. I think just in general, but to have that guy there, I was like, I hope he doesn't break up with me after that. And I remember saying, okay, as I was in the green room, Melanie, you have always promised yourself Yes, as a storyteller, it is important to keep the audience in mind and be thoughtful of them as audience members. But part of my recovery from codependency and patriarchal conditioning around centering men, or, the male gaze, or a bunch of judgmental women who, hold me to a standard of patriarchy, that I never, ever, 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 ever want to change my story because someone in that audience, because of one person in that audience, because of me centering what that one person thinks of me over this thing, this craft, this thing that's so important to me. And so I told that story of Fork and a Clown like I would tell it any other day. I pretended like he wasn't in the room, and it went great. I mean, we ended up not dating anyway. So I'm so glad I didn't change that story for trash. So when I started dating, I never wanted people to know my name, like my last name, especially as I got more and more stuff out there, because it didn't seem fair for them to be able to just learn all this stuff about me, my trauma, my domestic violence, on my schmeg's life, all this stuff, and me literally know nothing about them, especially in France, because people are so private here. And so, I didn't tell people my last name so they wouldn't Google me and find all this out, but it wasn't because of shame. And it wasn't because I was never going to let them know what I talk about. It was more like, I want to be, I don't want you to have all this information on me, and it's not equal. And so when I met Anthony, I have never been anyone but I am. And that's actually one of the green flags that my friends noticed. They were like, you are not any differently in front of him than you are in front of us. Nothing changes. You're not performing, you're not making jokes, you're not trying to you're not just toning yourself down or hamming it up or any of that crap I've done in the past. Totally comfortable, totally the same. No difference. That was a huge green flag for me, because that meant that I felt really comfortable and safe with this man. And it was a green flag for him because he's not the least bit afraid of how nuts I am sometimes. And so he watches all my stuff. He's one of my biggest fans. He's the one, whenever I'm like, oh God, he's like, babe, he is my number one fan. So I never changed my story for the ego of an insecure fantasy boyfriend, and I'm not doing it for my own husband. But you know why I don't need to? A, because it goes against what I believe in. B, because I'm confident in myself. C, he's a confident, secure man. And that's why I say all the time, do not date insecure men, especially if you are really talented, are very successful and all that stuff, because this man will bring you down. You will start to make yourself small. They talk about this all the time. They love humbling us. That is not what he wants. He doesn't want me to police myself, especially not in his name. So I'm really glad that this comment came up. I don't mean this as shade to this person. I blocked out the name. I just want to show you, because I really think a lot of women, whether they realize it or not, are still centering men and their feelings and their emotions, or what we are told we're supposed to do. And I want to help inspire other women to stop performing for these men. Stop performing for patriarchy. Stop trying to center their ego. If they can't handle you and who you truly are, why are you with them? Now, this doesn't mean I'm not mindful of my husband, right? I'm not going to disrespect him in my video. I'm also not going to overshare our private life, because it's hard for me to have someone attached to me as more of a publicish kind of figure, right? Before, I'm the only one who suffers the consequences, except for any family member who may have the same last name, but everyone else can be anonymous, but he can't. He can't. So I try to protect our private life on some level, because that's for us, right? But I am here to tell my stories, and I am never going to change them for him, and he doesn't want me to. So this was just a friendly reminder, and I know this wasn't meant to be me. Literally, it was a friendly reminder, but I'm not going to read all this. But I feel bad for your husband. You're going to create insecurities in your husband? No, I won't, because he knows this isn't about him. It's really disrespectful to him. No, it's not. That has nothing to do with him. This is please unlearn this, y'all. This is internalized misogyny. I just wrote, he's fine. Don't worry about him. And then Anthony wrote, I appreciate the intent of your comment. Let me just tell you not to worry about me or my ego. I don't feel any insecurity, and less so in relation to Melanie's past. I have my own past. He goes on to say a little bit more. But just in case anyone's wondering, not only is he my biggest fan and watches all my content, he's a huge fan of the stuff I've written while married to him. Like this one about going to a schmegs club. This one about forking like 8 dudes in the French Riviera in 1 week. I'm not centering my husband, nor should you.